I hope you liked that video. Hey, average age of the folks on that aircraft carrier, probably around 25 years old. Average age of the aircrew, probably 28 to 30 years old. So when we talk about our sons and daughters and what we do and how important it is, those are our sons and daughters. All right, to quickly introduce the panel, I got Mr. Tom Radowski, the NAVAIR Deputy Commander. Tom will be talking today kind of about what we're doing from an affordability perspective. Up next will be Admiral Chet Lemon, NOC AD Commander, future PEOT. He and Dan Carreño will be talking about from the Warfare Centers what they're doing to accelerate delivery of warfighting capability. The FRC Commander Joe Hornbuck will be talking to us today from a readiness perspective, what we're doing to improve our availability of our aircraft from both an MC and FMC perspective. I'll kick it off, and then we'll kind of just go to each panelist members for a quick introduction, and then we'll open it up for questions. From NAVAIR, the North Star is very simple: deliver the warfighting capability the fleet needs to win at a cost we can afford. Balancing that equation between capability and affordability. You just heard SecNav at the luncheon talk about this. So critically important to how we execute our flight plan, how we deliver the air wing of the future moving forward here. My focus areas: delivering integrated warfighting capability. We are at sea, air, and space, delivering integrated warfighting capability that spans from seabed to space, increasing our warfighting capability by connecting networks, sensors, platforms, and weapons. That's what I'm talking about. That's integrated warfighting capability. You've heard probably previously at other commanders talk about integration and distribution to enable maneuver. That's how we're going to fight the next war. The second priority is going to be on partnerships. Did anybody go to the SecNav luncheon? Okay, so it was, you kind of heard SecNav talk about this quite often as well. So building the partnerships, delivering that system-to-system capability is going to require partnerships between the PMs, the PEOs, the SysComs, the services, and with industry, both large and small. And the final thing I'll talk about before I kick it off to the panelists will be developing our workforce so that we can develop, deliver, integrate, test, and field the next generation of capability. And Chet and Dan will hopefully talk about that today as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Tom, and then we'll just go through the panelists.
Okay, thanks. And it's a good segue into the things that I'm going to talk about as a Warfare Center commander and also as the chief engineer for NAVAIR. I'm John Lemon. We, in a Warfare Center, I think writ large, you could say our job is to advance capability and operational readiness for the fleet across the board. And within NAVAIR, we have two Warfare Centers. You'll hear from Dan Carreño here in a few minutes on the Weapons Division side. And then we're one of three Echelon 3 commands, and the other one is COMFRC. So you've heard Admiral Chebby talk before and today, and Mr. Radowski now talk about the affordability piece, doing things at a cost we can afford. And for NOC AD, I just want to make sure, and what we've been really trying to make sure our teammates understand very clearly, that what that does not mean. What it doesn't mean is this is not about doing more with less. So we've gotten some feedback along the lines of that. We're trying to make sure that what that looks like is looking for things that we maybe could do differently in a different way that becomes a more efficient manner of doing it. Things that we perhaps could not do anymore or divest of doing. But all of that would be done in collaboration with our customers, because we get our demand signal from a lot of program offices and across other customers in DoD. And the idea is that in close partnership and collaboration with them, we're going to continue to look for those opportunities. The other thing is we have opportunities within the Warfare Centers where we show a big positive return on investment for the dollars that are coming into the Warfare Centers. I'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute. But we want to expand those capabilities, and we want to do so in an efficient manner. And then the other thing is, where are we perhaps not seeing the highest return on investments, and why within the products and services that we provide, and then we're going to go attack those things as well. So as a command, I'd say both Warfare Centers are in a strong position. We have a lot of demand coming in for our work. The budgets, provide the funding that comes into the Warfare Centers. And we have parts of NOC AD like Airworks and our Webster Outlying Field, where we do rapid prototyping, experimentation, and demonstration activities. And those are the kinds of things that organically and in partnership with industry, we have an opportunity to continue to grow and provide, better capability, more effective capability, but do it in a more cost-efficient manner. And so those kinds of things are exactly in line with what I was talking about before. And the thing that is also really important about all of this is where industry comes in to play with us. So when everything we're trying to do is moving toward a more digitally integrated environment, okay? And we can't do that without having our industry partners alongside us as we build out the infrastructure, as we build out the information technology networks, and as we acquire the software suites that our entire workforce is going to need to go from all the way from design to development, and then all the way through into sustainment, which is, as you all know, a big part of where we see the bulk of the cost in the life cycle of a program. So those are the areas where we are looking for, again, partnership with industry, and really trying to expand the capabilities within the Warfare Centers, and better support the program offices. And then on the testing, both development testing and operational testing side, we have a number of things going on with live, virtual, and constructive. And we also have a huge opportunity with a capability that we have in support of F-35 IOT&E, which is our joint simulation environment. And right now, while it is focused on IOT&E for F-35, there is huge opportunity there from also leveraging it for development work on the testing side, and also for training. We've had a number of Air Force and our Top Gun teammates have come out and leveraged doing defensive counter-air work in the joint simulation environment, and they're getting some huge benefits out of the training that they're seeing in that environment. So again, all this with a lot of industry participation, and that's kind of the future of where we're going, really trying to expand. If you've read Dr. Roper's paper, There Is No Spoon, and kind of the wave of the future for acquisition, it's going to be in the digital environment, and that digital thread from all the way from design, and every day it is a design review, and collapsing that systems engineering V down. That is exactly what we're trying to do, and then tie everything that we're doing to the trade-offs that may or may not be the right thing to do based on what that looks like in sustainment for us. So with that, I'll turn it over to, I think, Dan, you're next.
Okay, thanks. I thought Bo was next, but anyway, no, this is good. Hey, it's great to see you all. It's great to be here. That video always gets me really excited and just rejuvenates me, and just the power of naval aviation, and it's just makes me want to come to work again tomorrow. And why would you want to do anything else but this? Hey, it's just talk a little bit about Weapons Division and myself and my commanding officer, Admiral Dillon, who's not with us today. But we're committed to solving these technical challenges. Some of the things Admiral Lemon just covered. And I will say, from a Weapons Division, out on the West Coast with China Lake and Point Mugu, if you think traditionally we could do our weapons work and our ranges, and we could do all that just fine. We could draw a boundary around what that meant. And same time, Aircraft Division could draw a boundary around airworthiness and flight clearances and things like that. And as warfare centers and RDT&E labs, we could kind of home in on, just kind of focus on our own stuff. But now we look at Air Wing of the Future, and we talk about Air Wing of the Future, but we talk about, I think it's really more Carrier Strike Group of the future. And even if you think beyond that, where some of those lightning bolts are going to go, if you think that OV-1, and what does that picture look like? And I mean, we can think out maybe 10, 15 years, and then who knows, 30 years, like the SecNav was, kind of talking, about a little while ago. But it's getting a lot more difficult to, those lines are blurred. And on a positive, that might sound negative, but really on the positive side, that's an opportunity for Steve Critchie and I to get our largely civilian workforce and start tackling these problems: digital engineering, artificial intelligence, machine learning, all the things that are the skill sets that are going to be required to really execute successfully for our customers. And so we're tackling that together. Nothing is really site specific when we start thinking about the skill sets necessary. And you all know what the job market is. Recruiting and retaining talent is one of our most significant issues that we have. So we're joined at the hip and are going to continue, again, committed to working together and leverage the power of the NOC, vice East or West Coast. And so just a lot of great opportunities there. With respect to weapons, I'm going to talk about, just three primary things. One is investments in modeling and simulation, and Admiral Lemon touched on that. But if we think back to that OV-1 and all the lightning bolts, some of which, again, go well outside the Carrier Strike Group, when we start thinking about where data may have to come from, and how do we practice that? How do we model it? How do we know that it works? It's easy, relatively easy. Didn't used to be. It was relatively easy to hang a SLAM ER on an F-18 and go, against a target. And then you throw in Link 16 and it got a little harder, and, and we just, all of a sudden, LRASM, it gets a little harder. But now you look at this battle space is crazy. And so, we're going to be able to practice that real time? No, we don't have the assets. Even if we did, I'm not sure we want to get those out there anyway from, and show everything that we might be doing. So this integrated fires laboratory, from the weapons standpoint, that we're developing jointly with a joint simulation environment at Aircraft Division, linking those and be able to have a simulation environment that not only allows developmental testing, but training
And when the fleet, when it gets out there, if there's a problem and there's a question, just like we've done with weapons, hardware, and the loop labs, let's bring that back and have an environment that we can articulate and with credibility let the fleet know, okay, these are the options. But that is a huge undertaking. We'll never snap the line or never, pound the desk and say, okay, now we're done. That's going to continue to evolve. And that's something I'm excited about working together and bringing our collective expertise together on. Specifically with weapons, I talked a little while ago if you were there, but the bottom line is the weapons, they taking too long, they cost too much, they're marginally effective by the time they get fielded, and that sounds a little harsh, but it's easy to say. But how do we increase the time? And if we look at why the complexity that's going into weapons, I mean, there's a reason we're trying to jam in a lot of things with very narrow set of solutions into a system, and we don't get to do a lot of multiple systems across mission areas like maybe we used to. So how can we open up the door and bring the best of breed on all the technologies? There's a lot of you in the industry that have great ideas, but you come to the weapons table and it's like, oh, I got to get through that proprietary interface, and there's one or three or four maybe primes that are really doing all up rounds. Well, this open systems architectures will allow us to break them into some piece parts. If you saw Admiral Corey's brief yesterday, and why can't we do incremental improvements, kind of on a 3 to 5 year cycle, P-cube dies like we used to do. And so I think that's going to be critically important for developing weapons. Again, they're on a timeline that we know they're not keeping up. It was good in the past, and it's a framework that we have, but we have to continuously look at opportunities to change that result. And so the third thing I'll say is one way that we can do that is through creatives. What are some other industry partnering opportunities that we can do? Look at non-traditional players. They're frequently, it's hard for you to get into the weapons business if you don't have an energetics plant, or you're not qualified or explosive sighted by NOSA, or you don't have a massive production line. But on the government side, weapons division and aircraft division, other warfare centers, we have that. And there are vehicles that we can bring non-traditional participants into that, and you can develop that technology, have access to our SMEs, our facilities, our infrastructure. And so I see that as a very positive way, or a positive opportunity to increase that speed of development. Let's do that again, incremental technology improvements rather than a huge leap that's taken, again, 20 years might be nominal in that these days. So again, I'm excited about, again, what lies in front of us. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Admiral Hornbuckle.
Hey, Dan, thank you. Well, you heard us talk about delivering the warfighting capability that the fleet needs at a cost we can afford. Mr. Radowski opened up with discussions of affordability. We heard from Chet and Dan talk about capability. I'm going to share with you a few vignettes about availability, readiness, and then bring us all the way back to affordability, and then we look forward to taking your questions. So I'm Joe Hornbuckle, along with our Executive Director, Mr. Roy Harris. We lead the Naval Aviation's Fleet Readiness Centers. For those of you that are not as familiar, we exist as to anchor the sustainment arm for naval aviation. We represent strategic impact for readiness across our ecosystem. That's broken down into essentially 4 major lines of effort. Each year we provide about 500 aircraft planned maintenance intervals. That's a 5-year overhaul of most aircraft when they come back to the depot to treat corrosion and structural issues, and that's a planned part of most aircraft life cycle. Each year we overhaul about 3,000 engines and engine modules, as well as about 150,000 components between the intermediate and depot level facilities there. Finally, we provide the fleet sustainment teams that work closely with the NOCs, and they make sure we provide the engineering and logistics support that our warfighters and programs need to drive in reliability and safety across the fleet. So to tell the story, I'll take us on a little bit of a journey for readiness for naval aviation that began in 2018 when we got a call to action from the Secretary of Defense. He tasked us to get the Super Hornet fleet from where we were, and we've been relatively static in mission capable and full mission capable aircraft for about a decade as we continue to procure and increase our total inventory. So that call to action began in 2018 and was the birth of the Navy Sustainment System for Aviation. That incorporated 7 pillars to include FRC reform, and we got after collectively, O-level, I-level, D-level, with our industry partners and our operational teammates to get after every aspect of readiness. And within just about a year, we were able to increase our Super Hornet inventory by about 100 aircraft with essentially the same infrastructure that we had in place. So we took the opportunity within the FRCs to build on that, learn from those best practices, bring in non-advocates and benchmark all that we do across all of our product lines, and to really get real and begin to get better. So we looked at the difference between the performance that we had at the time and what the theoretical optimum was. We benchmarked that very closely, and we've been systematically getting after those deltas as we move forward. As far as turnaround time and work in progress, in the F-18 example, we essentially reduced aircraft inflow through the depots by half and kept them there half as long. We've since then been able to scale that learning across the E2 lines, the V22 PMI lines, reducing their time to spend at the depot by nearly half, and the H-60s, which is a tremendous portion of our inventory, by over 25%. We're scaling that learning now, and we put those best practices in place across every PMI line within the organic depots, and we're taking that learning to our engine lines as well as our component lines. What we learned on components with some powerful forensics is that we had declined in volume in our depot component lines by nearly 50% over a decade. Not by malice or mismanagement, but because of the nature of the way that the industry and organic balance have moved forward. What that has created is tremendous opportunity to do more for the ecosystem with the existing facilities that we have. So we've really expanded our partnerships, and that's one of the themes that we'll talk about today. We met with a number of you this morning about expanding our public-private partnerships. When we looked across our organization for component repair, we found that some of the best examples of performance lied when we had industry and the government collaborating. Those were in our dual source repairs, where we had an option to learn from each other on repairing comparable components, and then on our public-private partnerships, where we actually serve an industry partner back to the government and take full advantage of our skilled artisans and the infrastructure that we have in place. Lastly, we're taking a very close look, along with our partners at the NOC, at our fleet support teams and the engineering and logistics support they have there, making sure that we're doing it in a standard fashion and making sure we're providing every bit of gain we have for those dollars. 2022 has been a huge year for us because we've tried to capture this transformation across the breadth of our product lines and the work that our partners in the O-level and industry are doing with an FRC transformation plan, with very tangible performance to plan and metrics that we can hold and measure ourselves to going forward. And what we found is that we've talked about availability, but affordability has gone very hand in hand. As we've captured these efficiencies, it has essentially created additional capacity within our ecosystem that we're able to consolidate and repurpose and do even more work, deliver even more buying power for naval aviation. So I think that brings us full circle back to Mr. Radowski's opening comments about affordability. So with that, sir, I'll turn it back over to you for questions.
Okay, I'm back up. So again, North Star, deliver the warfighting capability the fleet needs to win at a cost we can afford. The priorities is going to be speed of capability and introduction, and the two NOC commanders kind of talked about that. How do we modernize the way we develop, integrate, test, and field our capability? They talked about the digital environments from both a software and a hardware perspective. From an affordability, Tom Radowski talked to you about what we can do to kind of shift the curve down, drive efficiencies into our current system, as well as bend the curve in the future, setting long-range cost targets for each one of our PMs, as well as get left of the problem for our next generation weapon systems. And then the availability, Joe Hornbuckle did a fantastic job kind of walking through what the FRCs are doing to increase our MC and FMC across all of our TMSs. All right, with that, I'll pause and we'll open it up for questions.
Do we have any audience questions? Somebody has to have one.
Good afternoon, sirs. And just a quick question for a lot of, I guess it's for any one of you. Can you hear me, Bo? Oh, thanks. A lot of change going on, a lot of workload and workforce requirements to, like you're talking about, change the pedigree and complexion of the skill sets and all of those sorts of things to adopt to that. Is there a plan to sort of inculcate these newer behaviors and or decision calculuses and all of that in order to allow some of these great, novel, and needed efforts like model-based systems engineering and digital engineering writ large? What are we doing to ensure that we equip the workforce to be able to navigate that and to deliver the speed that we're talking about? Thank you.
Okay, I'll start off, then I'll hit it off to either Tom or to the non-commanders. Okay, we often talk about the size and shape of our workforce. Do we need a bigger workforce, or does it just need to be shaped a little bit differently? So when I talk about developing our workforce to develop and integrate and test and field the next generation of warfighting capability, the skill sets that they use to develop the F-14 or the F-18 are not the same skill sets they need kind of going forward here. So we're actively looking at that, but I've gone to industry as well on this one and open up to this dialogue to many of the folks in here. We all talk about going digital. Actually going digital and getting your workforce to transition to that new model has been tough for us, tough for the Air Force, as well as tough for industry. But I'll let the folks also chime in.
Yeah, I think there's a key point to, hey, if you keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result, that might be we know what the saying is. One of the things that we're absolutely driving toward is learning organization. What does it mean to be a learning organization? What does it mean to explore, learn, get feedback, and adjust? That's something that we've got to do much, much better. I found it with the 341, a journey to 341 and now to 360. We went out and saw what commercial does, what our FedEx, Delta Tech Ops, Southwest. Most folks will say, well, they don't do what we do. In fact, they absolutely do what we do, and they do it extremely well. And so we took that on and we learned from it. And then from that feedback into the system allowed us to take the best of breed. So we now have a mock AOG sitting at Norfolk who's doing phenomenal work each and every day. We have reliability control boards in place that are not only getting after the reliability of the systems to help the maintainers to do less maintenance, but it's also driving the affordability curve down. It's also giving us many other different ways, but you've got to look holistically and understand how the system works. Take that learning from what is working, why, and then adjust it based upon whatever we can take from best practices and roll it in and have the humility to do that. So I'll pause there. I was just going to add that we are actually doing some of this work already. It's in pockets and in different phases of the life cycle. The programs, like Future Vertical Lift, you got NJAD that is starting early, right? And then, so, I mean, I have seen this digital thread work. It works. But the key is what I mentioned is having the infrastructure in place, having the information technology at all security levels to be able to move data in and out in the models, look at it as a design review a day if you're in the design early part, but then connect that all the way through to the sustainment, the software agility we need with the tools. And then, of course, to get to your point, which is the workforce piece, that is what's going to make it actually happen. We have people, we don't have enough of them. And so while I can't sit here and articulate to you a detailed plan, we are working a plan. But we have to know what the North Star is. And I think we have a pretty good idea of what that looks like. And I've seen some of this happen. And if you look at what Formula One race cars do, that's how they roll, right? Literally. And so this is what the future is for us. And then our workforce, this is where we may have to lean on industry to help with, hey, you can't do it that way. You've got to start here first, and then you scale, and you've got to bring these kinds of people in. So that's, and that, again, back all the way from the design work, all the way through into the FRCs and into the digital shop floors and all that stuff.
For most of the folks who come in and see me, One of the questions that's always gets asked at the end is where are our opportunities? So if there's something that you're seeing out in the industry that we should potentially adopt at NAVAIR, we are all ears. Every single time somebody comes in now, I'm asking that question: where are our opportunities? Where are my blind spots? Where can we do things differently as we move forward here? All right, next question.
Can you hear me? Gentlemen, thank you for all the insight on the upgrades and the look ahead on the technology side of the house. Love to get your impressions on how the air crew themselves are handling the adapting to the new generation systems and weapons and the new digital age with keeping up with the time to train and the availability of air crew. And if the air crew shortages or the pilot shortages is taking effect on how industry may be able to better adapt to help support the warfighter from producing pilots and time to train and get students through the RAGs and FRSs.
All right, one more time with the question, make sure I understand it.
If there's ability for industry to help adapt to the air crew's training side of the house by producing pilots better, quicker, more equipped to deal with the new technologies that's coming down the road. Because obviously there's a lot to learn with this new technology, but how can we let the pilots and air crew adapt with the load that's on them today?
All right, I'll start, and then I'm going to hand it either over to Tom or to Chet here. Hey, we talk about our sons and daughters. You know, that's who we're supporting. Lieutenant J.G. Chebby is going through flight school right now, so it's interesting. I get direct feedback, post-flight debriefs from him on what's working well, what's not working well. I know Gimp Westendorf is modernizing how he's doing his training syllabus down at Corpus Christi, but I'd love to hear either from Tom or Chet anything else you guys have to offer there.
Thanks, sir. So back there, standing back there is our NOC Training Systems Division, Captain Cavelli. He's the commanding officer down there. But I will tell you that there are a number of things that are going on across, especially in the, the training pipeline for air crew. And one of the things that we're leveraging a lot is, and I'm not an expert in this, I've put goggles on and, done virtual reality and augmented reality a little bit, but we're really leveraging that capability with some of the early and even more advanced flight training. And so we're actually seeing reductions in timelines to train, which is a good thing, which equates to, faster throughput, more in the same amount of time, but also, a less expensive way of doing it than a big full up simulation, simulator, full motion simulator, and or actually having to do training flights in an actual aircraft. So we are absolutely leveraging that. Also tied back in with on the NOC AD side, we have a human systems engineering department. And so we're tied in with the safety command, the Naval Safety Command now used to be Naval Safety Center. And our team is connected with them looking at, for example, HAZREP and mishap data to know where are those challenges in the cockpit with all the different buttonology and switchology and things, and where could we automate more? Where does it not make sense to automate? And, where are we overloading the air crew in a way that is probably not optimal? And how do we alleviate that?
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to it is live virtual constructive is we got to be thinking about immersing our warfighters in training to give them the opportunity to exercise as many reps and sets as they can get. Technology should help simplify the battle space, not overly complicate it. So that comes to a design aspect. But LVC and being able to learn from LVC and being able to kind of create opportunities for how to actually get to the fight, I think is key. And so as we expand out immersive environments up to the full-blown LVC of what folks want, how they want to define it, that's where absolutely we're headed and where we need to go.
I'll just add one more thing. Like the time and cost for us to train our air crews today. I'm not going to help you with your business here, but I'll just give you a business case. Where do we need to be in 10 years? And in 10 years, I can save you this much amount of time or money by changing the way you look at training. When you come into my office and you talk to us, that's what we need to hear. We are making improvements. NOC TSD is making improvements. We are going more LVC. We are using live virtual more and more. What does the future state of training look like? Yeah, to be determined still.
Do we have any additional questions?
Boss, can I add something on the discussion from the FRCs and kind of how we got to the 341 number, and now we're, obviously we've upped our ante on that number as well. Even without changing infrastructure, but just looking at processes, back to Tom's point about we can't just keep doing things the way we've always done them. On the engineering side, we really looked at how could we better support the production, the artisans that are actually doing the work on the aircraft, and what are our processes that are impeding them. And we looked at things like, so one of the things that really took off the velocity of the engineering dispositions that we see as aircraft get torn down and have repair requests come in is we segmented our approach to delivering the designs to the artisans so that material could be ordered and they could get working before we had completed. So we do the static analysis and then we complete the fatigue analysis in parallel. That was a huge driver to the velocity with which we were able to keep the timeline down, say for Super Hornet, on 60 days. But that was not a required, infrastructure change. It was simply a matter of critical thinking. This is how we've done it in the past. So, but why are we doing it that way? Is there a way we could take a little risk? How often do we actually fail static margin when we do the fatigue analysis? And the numbers were really low. So that was a way to increase the velocity of the service that was being provided. And I just wanted to throw that in because if you take that and then you start looking at the digital stuff that I talked about before, if we have a digital twin of something, we have all the things that are in that model, we can do those changes even more rapidly, I believe. So.
Any additional questions today? Okay.
Okay, thanks again for coming out. How about a big round of applause for the panelists? It was. Hey, as soon as we're done here, I recommend you come up. If you have additional questions, you were too shy to ask a question out loud, come on up and engage with them. Especially to the industry partners here, I thank you for what you do each and every single day. It is our sons and daughters who are going into harm's way with the warfighting capability that we are delivering. I appreciate everything you do each and every single day to make sure you get them the best product we possibly can afford so they can go execute their missions and return home safely. Thanks, team.
And also, I'd like to remind you that at 4 o'clock today, Vice Admiral Chubby will be joining other naval aviation leaders to talk about the future of naval warfighting capabilities. So please join us, Potomac Ballroom C and D at 4 o'clock today. Thank you.